Italia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Still Here Presents Legends, Monsters, and Chosen Family, an intimate evening with Tina V. Aguirre. My name is Natalia Vigil, she, her, hers, and I'm the co-founder of Still Here San Francisco. Founded in 2012, Still Here San Francisco is an intergenerational cultural preservation project that amplifies the voices and creativity of LGBTQ, Two-Spirit Plus BIPOC artists raised in San Francisco. To honor the intergenerational piece of our work, Still Here has expanded our circle to include people who came to the city at a young age and who've stayed in San Francisco for decades, made it their home, and have been integral to the activism and cultural preservation here. As people to which the land we call San Francisco holds great importance, we acknowledge this as the traditional land of the Loni people of the Chichui village. We pay respect to the elders, both past and present, who stewarded this land throughout generations, and to the Loni people of today, for which this land is home. Still Here Presents is stemmed from the desire to take a more intimate look at the lives and the work of Still Here artists. I want to thank our co-sponsor, the GLBT Historical Society, thank the California Arts Council and San Francisco Arts Commission. I want to thank Amanda V. Hill, our tech magic behind the scenes, and to our community for your support. Now I'd like to introduce you to Tina V. Aguirre. Welcome, Tina.
Hi, thank you for having me, Nati, and thank you, Amanda, for all of your stellar work to make this happen.
Tina, you and I met after Radar Productions Missing You event. And since then, you were part of the 2-month writing workshop and reading. You've been part of Still Here San Francisco's nonfiction anthology that's available through Foglifter Press. And you're currently part of a monthly Still Here writing group that's led by Janine Moganin that began at the start of COVID. And you have just become one of my most beloved people. I'm so happy to be here with you tonight.
Oh my
Janine's
goodness,
actually
thank
in the
you.
chat and she'll be collecting questions for our Q&A at the end of the discussion. So for everyone that's watching, if you have any questions to ask Tina, feel free to write in the YouTube chat question for Tina, followed by your question. And Janine will join us at the end of the event and actually pose your questions to Tina.
Yay, thank you.
So Tina, I'd love to start just by hearing about your life right now and what it means for you to be here in this moment with us.
Well, first, thank you. And I am happy to be alive and to be thriving. I think it's a scary time for so many of us. And it's also an exciting time post election. Um, and really a continuation of so much work that has started, that was started decades ago in terms of racial, gender, and queer equity. Um, and the role of the arts in all of that happening is so important and has always been for me integral to doing the work. I think there's a quote that if there's going to be a revolution, I need to be able to dance in the revolution. I know I'm mangling the quote, but I think for me, what I hold on to is um, I'm not really waiting for a revolution to be happy. That I'm going to be a part of community events and art and work that makes me and our communities happy now because that's what we deserve. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
I'd love to hear from you what motivated you as we were talking about this event to want to name the show Legends, Monsters, and Chosen Family and how the themes have shown up in your work and in your life.
Sure, thank you. Legends, Monsters, and Chosen Family comes from ideas that I started to work with in the early 90s when so many of us started to pass away from cancer or AIDS or were displaced by gentrification. Um, what became apparent is that we needed to support each other. And I need to give a little shout out to a sister who I haven't talked to in a long time, Martín Ornelas, who used to work at Instituto Familiar de la Raza. At the time, they were redefining care for us. It's a mental health organization, and through the context of family, familia. And I remember having a strong negative response to that at the time because so many of our families have toxic masculinity, have so many ideas, misogynistic ideas about how femmes should act or should be, that I had a negative response to it, but later, it became clear that we are the families that we need during crises. And I guess along the way, what happened was I'm attracted to monsters and um, and I guess legends, and it's funny how sometimes those labels become switched. So at any moment, I've been a monster or I can be illegal. Let's say if I was doing what I'm doing today, I would be illegal in the 60s, in which case I could easily be seen as a monster. And, um, and then very quickly, I connected with people who were legends here before I got here. And those included like Rodrigo Reyes and Teresita la Campesina, Esther Hernandez, um, people who I got really close to, and I knew that they were legends, and I also learned very quickly that um, at the same time we're all humans and we're all able to love and support each other. And so I guess I just started to talk about legends and monsters. There was an article I did for a Horizons Foundation newsletter, and I think 90 it was after Viva 16th, or maybe it was around 94, that I where I started to use the terms monsters. And for me, it's out of being a fully developed, autonomous person. I consider that monstrous. And I think also artistic and talented. So I don't know. I hope that that answers the question.
It does. You know, from talking to you, I know and I love how you're already bringing in so much of your work and people that are important to you. I know that each poem and each show and each partnership is revered and is a high point for you. So there's no use in asking you, like, what's your defining moment? Because every moment defines you. And people may know you in so many ways. They may know your documentary work, including Viva 16. They may know your participation in Quelaco festivals or as a producer of the Wana Opera. They may know your poetry or your murals or your Chosen Familias exhibit. And I encourage everyone to look up Tina to see the full breadth of their work. But tonight is really going to be about your life's work and your heart and overarching purpose. And I know you have a poem to share with us right now.
I do. It is a poem that I've written in the last month or two. It is it's for my mother, as sometimes a lot of my poems are. So what I can share with you is that my mom had a nickname Tuti, and so that's in the title. The name of the poem is "Thank You for Tea Time Traveling with Tina and Tuti." I find myself in plates of pollo and frijoles, the meat, my brains, and memories. I'm imagining my mom made me early one afternoon, after a kitchen sink drama where my nana debased her. In her mind, she becomes a giant bear, running to a creek to hunt for fish. Upon jumping in the water, she emerges as a seagull, fish in beak, flying back to us, to me. Put the chili and tomatoes in the bowl, she says as she resorts to her starry self. This is when she holds my hand, like thousands of other times. We're transported to Woolworths, listening to Little Richard. She's a teenager, and I'm her girlfriend's new hairdo. She can't stop looking at me. This is my favorite, she says to Margie, her bestie, and I know she means me. I jump off Margie's head, morphing into a baby bear. I grab her hand and we're at Nordstrom's, having tea dressed in our fancies. Why are we here? She asks. Because we deserve the best, and I can only afford a great pastel and tea for two. This cookie will fill us for the rest of our lives. We hold hands and we're back home. She with a bouffant beehive, and me 3 years old next to her. We set a timer on the Polaroid camera. I point to the camera, and the flash brought you to join me and my mom on this adventure.
Thank you for sharing that beautiful poem. The poem, like so much of your work, feels very temporal and like you're taking us on a journey through time. And I know when we're planning this event, and because I know you, you have so many incredible poems and offerings to choose from. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit about specifically why this poem and why time traveling feels so important at this event and for you right now.
Sure. Well, I guess what happens is when people start to ask me about art or community or love, or when I start to create and I look at my my work, it really does um, span different times and moments, and it's sort of like um, when you click on a hyperlink, it doesn't really matter whether or not it's chronological or it's linear. I think what I got from one of my sisters, Osa Hidalgo de la Riva, is that time is a continuum, and how we access love and community and art and magic really is it's outside of a line. And so for me, I think um, when I am connecting with a new chosen family member, when I'm finding little baby monsters and they're wondering, like, how do we do this? How can I be resilient? How can I find hope? Um, Sometimes they're asking literally me, like, how do I wake up in the morning and have hope? There's a bit of time traveling that I have to go through in order to answer the question. I am going to be 53 in April. So, and I started doing poetry and writing, and here in San Francisco, I guess when I was 19 or 20. Um, and so there's just a lot of time traveling involved in sharing this. Also, I think the art that I tend to like to do focuses on love and stories, and the specific timing of it is not limited to now. And so
Mhm.
a lot of um, what I end up doing is just picking and choosing a particular moment. And I think for us right now, struggling through COVID, struggling with the racial reckoning that is a long time coming, for me, I have lots of references that help me to sort of figure out what is the spell, what is the work, what is the mobilization that has to take place, um, and it involves some time travel.
I love that you just said that because when we were in person writing groups, I was so drawn to how you turned loss, first with the loss of your parents, or like you just did, referencing your mom, into an incantation of love and timelessness. And having lost my dad at 17, I think that when there is something like that, or even like what we're going through now, there are these ways in which life can take on a before that event, a before and after kind of quality to it. But what I've come to understand is how the before and after actually exist all at once. And I just see that so beautifully in your work.
Thank you. I think you and I are on this strange we exist in this strange phenomenon where I think we're flip sides of a coin. Or there's lots of metaphors that I'm just going to mess up here, but essentially, we both have done lots of community work. We're both artists. We're both fundraisers, which is very specific, and then we're also art producers and arts organization leaders, which is an odd thing. It's happened to me a couple, well, at least with Rodrigo Reyes. Rodrigo was my mentor, and for me, the idea that you and I are on the same path, I was on the same path with Rodrigo. There are others, not that many of us, that I think really clues me into this idea that um, time itself and this work is it's universal and it's constant. And then, like, you and I are, we're playing these roles right now. Like, we're in on this earth, we're the ones who are tapping into this energy and this that precedes us and will follow us. Um so yes, I guess I wanted to reinforce that the time travel also exists between you and I.
I really feel that. And I also feel that, like, whenever I cross paths with someone and have a kinship in the way that we do, that it's kind of this way in which this beautiful web and thread gets to be made larger because you have a life that precedes me, and now we're meeting now, and people will have a life that goes on after me and after you, and yet we get to exist in this moment and also just be timeless. Um, and may that be something that we get to have as part of this larger community. Um, so I know that it felt really important for you to include your legends and your monsters and your chosen familia, and we're going to be weaving them into our night and hearing some of those voices. And right now we're going to hear one of those voices from Ruben Casas.
Hi, my name is Ruben Casas, and my pronouns are he, him, his. And when I first met Tina, we were both in fourth grade. I had already met our third friend, the three comadres, as we say, in Burbank Elementary School, and then when we transferred over to fourth grade at Lowell Elementary in Barrio Logan Heights, San Diego, we became friends, and we were like, there were like gangs, cholos trying to recruit us. You know, they beat you up to join their gang and stuff like that. You know, when you're Latino, Hispanic, and you live in a barrio, that's things you go through. And but we survived it, and we met. I think playing tetherball. Yeah. So I was a pretty tall kid at the time, and so I fling the ball, and I ended up being like one of the best players there. And so that's what I loved about playing that game. And so that's how we met, and we've been friends ever since. And now we're in our 50s, and we've always had each other, support each other, love each other, and we call each other on weekends when we're not busy and have a good time. And we've lived through her marriage, Tina's marriage to Bill, and it's been great. I think it's great that I have her, Tina, them, as support in my life. Otherwise, we may have never made it through together through our life. So that's it. Good to see you, Tina. Bye.
That video is so sweet, hearing from someone that's known you for so long.
Oh my goodness, I love Ruben so much. It's crazy, really, how this is part of the time traveling too. I have to admit, like going back and remembering my sister, my first sisters,
Mhm.
and how we all ended up being queer. We're all Latinx from Logan Heights in San Diego, is for real time traveling. Yeah, we what I could share with you a little bit um, to elaborate on what Ruben shared is that we were there were lots of bullies who were also our friends in school, and who really were just trying to make us fit into the idea of what they thought we should be in terms of um, young men or boys, which is what they and macho machismo that made sense, and in some ways was a chosen family for them. Being in a gang is a form of support in lots of places, but that we were really clear very quickly that we did not want to be a part of that. We were just kind of left out. So we met playing Foursquare and Tetherball, and what I remember from elementary too was that there was a trans woman. One of the first time that I saw a trans woman was on that playground, like third grade or fourth grade. And it was a black trans woman who would walk by. Logan Heights was mixed Mexican and black, and it was residential and industrial zoned. Um, and but there was this woman who would pass by each day and looking amazing and just sort of working like in the middle of the day, working the street in front of the school to be seen by the kids. And I remember thinking, what is going on here? And running to the fence and like saying hi and waving, and she would come and talk to me. And part of it was because I knew what I needed was not in the normal groups of like joining the gangs. And Ruben and Anselmo, my other sisters from that time, we all fit into that. Playing Foursquare and Tetherball was really because that's where we were safe and that's where we could have fun and we could hang out with girls and be feminine, and it would be okay, and we could have fun. So having Ruben in my life right still to this day is it really is amazing. He's done community work. He's a DJ and has supported drag and trans women in San Diego, Latinx. Has done lots of fundraising. Um, he's also a survivor. He has lived with HIV, um, and we've all really overcome lots of challenges, and we're still able to lead with love and laughter in a way that just makes us happy.
I'm so glad that people got to see and hear a little bit of your story, you and Ruben's story, and your other sisters from that time, because the thing that really resonates with me is how much it sounds as though love was a great force for you, even in childhood, and that you were gathering your chosen family even then, and you've kept them, and also that you were, you were so much going to be you, and you were going to find your people. And I know that for so many of us, our survival is dependent upon connection and to be there for each other during times of crisis and personal crisis and community crisis. And in terms of creativity, and thinking about this love as a force from early on, how do you see your work really attending to the human experience and your experience, or the question of survival over time and need for family?
Um, I I don't know exactly how to explain that, to tell you the truth, other than there are moments in which my only way out is to create and is to rely on some form of magic or some creativity that you take, sort of like Xochipilli is Aztec goddess that took filth and trash and made it new, made stuff new. And for me, I think it's something like that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Beautiful, transformational. I know you have another poem to share with us.
So the poem that I'm going to read is named I Knew You Were My Best Friend. I knew you were my best friend from when I still remember your phone number from the 1980s. From when we saw the Sheila E. concert together and Prince came out at the end and did a 45-minute set. From when you knew I was queer before I could admit it, and vice versa. From when I called you to watch the entire 1999 concert on the Night Flight show on a Saturday night. I knew you were my best friend from when we still laugh so hard together we get the giggles over stupid shit. From when you came to my house every day after school between 4th and 12th grades because your mom worked in the electronics factory as a single mother. From when you saw my mom in the nursing home 2 to 3 times a week and used FaceTime so she could see me, one of the few people she recognized, despite her dementia. From when I snapped you out of your meningitis induced psychosis by getting real with you and getting a day pass so you could leave the rehab, eat good Mexican food, and choose life. I knew you were my best friend from when you and my mom were the first people to call me girl. From when your mom talked to me about you having AIDS because you couldn't. From when you were there for me when my dad died and the following year when my mom died. From till this day, you're still one of my closest sisters. I love you, Ruben.
So I'm like so emotional from your um yeah, so I'm just thinking about how beautiful it is that that poem, like here we heard from Ruben about, like being younger, and then that poem like traverses the entirety of your life and knowing that you have each other still, and what a beautiful way to honor Ruben. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what it means for you to create work about those in your life as a way to honor them. I don't know like what inspires that, or how that comes about for you, or maybe honoring is part of your love language, your creative love language in a sense. But yeah, what is it? Not everybody writes about their own life as explicitly. And so I'm wondering about what it's like for you to honor and to cover larger themes by using your own personal story and relationships.
I Yeah, I don't know. I guess when I'm when I'm reading poetry or stories from people where they're not inserted into the texts, I get a little confused, and it's because I really am uh, coming from that place in terms of creativity, and that love and how we nurture it and how we care for each other are very specific things. They're almost like the codes and the operations of how these things happen um, are important, and I think they're embedded in our stories, in our interactions, and um, so I don't really know how to write without that level of specificity. I think early on, what started to do was to write for my mom, and like not. I do have a I have a vocabulary, and I know narrative tropes that are complex, and I do like formulas, and I do like I'm into numerology and writings that have like patterns and loops. But what I ultimately always come back to is, will my mom understand this? Can my sisters understand this? Am I being really clear? And often that doesn't need a stilted vocabulary. It doesn't need um, a really rigid formula. Also, in writing groups, I found I sometimes would talk and write in iambic pentameter to the point where people would say, why are you doing this? It's kind of irritating, and it's not. It doesn't sound real. And what I found was, okay, it just kind of would happen in a way that I didn't notice, and that what people really wanted um, from me was more conversational, and I started to let go of some of the trappings of um, formal writings, although I do on occasion get into writing something almost like a song. And but the rhymes don't have to all be there. I think the people and the love and the interactions need to be there.
Yeah, I was going to say the natural rhythm of your work is so musical, and I think it, like I said before, it just lends itself so much to an incantation for whoever it is that is the subject or whoever is the listener. And I really see how for you, life and art are all one story and one moment. And I know there are people, like you said, that have been really monumental for you. And we're gonna meet one of those people through video right now.
Mi nombre de nacimiento es Alberto Nevares. Mi nombre artístico es Teresita la Campesina y nací en 1940.
How did you get the name Teresita la Campesina?
Cuando yo vine a San Francisco, caí en un lugar que se llamaba La Rondalla. Cuando yo entré allí, le digo que me llamaba Teresita. Y el nombre hasta ahora se quedó que Teresita la Campesina, que la Campesina, y de la Rondalla a la terraza, para el Tenampa, que la Campesina se oía, y es todo. Como que San Francisco me bautizó ese nombre.
¿Eres campesina?
No, de campesina no tengo nada. Me dicen la campesina porque yo canto canciones del rancho, de campo, porque yo vengo mis padres eran de Chihuahua y yo comencé a cantar canciones revolucionarias.
What is a legend to you, and what makes you a legend, and what made Ronnie a legend?
Bueno, venimos de dos diferentes épocas. Yo soy antes que Ronnie. Yo comencé a cantar en Los Ángeles, como te digo, y ya tenía un gift. Cuando yo vine a San Francisco, ya los años pasaron, en Gay Liberation salió, pues tuve el honor de conocer a Ronnie Salazar, que era muy linda persona para mí. Y ese muchacho, como tenía mucho talento, no era cantante, pero doblaba, como se dice en inglés, pantomimes. Y oh, mama, you got a gift. Why'd you learn how to sing like that? She said, well, it's just a God-given gift. Y yo, como yo no sé mucho, yo nunca me gloreo. Yo no sé, te digo la verdad. He said, Mama, you got a voice. Let me do your makeup. So you know how to sing, but I got to teach you how to do your makeup. So Ronnie, como tenía buen corazón con todo el mundo, me maquillaba y todo. He said, y cuando ya me maquillaba, que iba a hacer un show, he said, Mama, you look like what you're supposed to look. Dale, Tere, ahora dale la voz. Era un muchacho que tenía mucho talento en sus manos, se prestaba, era muy bueno con todo el mundo, hasta con de lo peor, nunca lo ponía para abajo. Y yo tuve el honor de conocer a ese muchacho. Y bueno, era muy creativo. Él agarraba una peluca, agarraba un maquillaje, y de la nada te hacía un milagro. Era especial. Tenía un regalo especial.
Do you think he saw you as a mother?
Él me miraba con mucho respeto, como una mamá en la comunidad de homosexuales y travestistas. Me decía mamá, porque me decía, tú no sabes ni reconoces la voz que tienes, Teresita. Y ese muchacho, cuando las demás, esto es como te dije, en nuestra cara de envidia, nunca me puso para abajo. Siempre le decían, ¿por qué la pintas? Because she has a voice. And don't be jealous. Mama's got a voice. I don't care, but Mama is fantastic. She's great. Why not? Y él no cobraba, él lo hacía de corazón, que sí, le cantaba. Y cuando como te dije, cuando él me maquillaba y que iba a cantar con mariachis y me ponía de china poblana y ya bien arreglada, yo decía, Teresita, dale, ahora dale lo que Dios te tiene. Lo que te quiero decir, el maquillaje hace milagros, como lo que hacía Ronnie, pero el regalo que yo tengo no es maquillaje, viene de por dentro, de algo de Dios.
So Teresita is one of your mothers.
She sure is. I loved her. She's since passed. but she was one of my mothers, and Ronnie was one of my sisters. Ronnie Salazar, who she talks about, is featured in Viva 16, the movie that I did with Augie Robles in 1994. My other sisters are Mahogany, Ariela. Mahogany is still around, um, causing damage, breaking hearts. Um, Ariela and Ronnie both passed away, as did Teresita, and I miss them terribly. Teresita, I met, and what I loved is she, as a trans, at the time, I should say that at the time when we were connecting, transgender was not a term. So when I use the term transgender today, I need to acknowledge that was not the term. What she said was that she was a man and a woman, but she did go by Teresita, and her pronouns were she and her. Um, but she never denied it. What she said was she was all of it. And I think what I loved was that, yes, that me too. And um that she acknowledged that each of us had different paths in terms of gender, um and that for her, she just had clarity of, like, it always was, and she found a place where she was happy and able to love and sing. She also was a sex worker, so she made money. She made lots of money. And yeah, I shot a movie on Teresita, that I aired during 1996. It was a rough cut, actually. In those days, things weren't digital, so I edited the rough cut at Artist Television Access. At the time, they had decks in the back, and I showed a movie at the Roxy, 30-minute rough cut of called "Wanted Alive," Teresita la Campesina, and it really was because I wanted her to stay alive. She was alive back then, and but I did make it as a crime wanted poster, the promotion for it, which I quickly learned, oh, I can't use that because it looked like an actual wanted poster, and she had run-ins with the law, so I only used that once. But I did show with the Frameline Film Festival. There was a Tranny Fest. I know it's wrong to even say tranny at this point, but there was a Tranny Fest in '96, and then there was Cine Acciones Film Festival. And now I've been able to digitize all of my footage, and it makes me so happy because I can go back to it. Um, Recently, I was watching a show on HBO Max, La Veneno, that one of my queer nibblings, Huli, turned me on to. I had heard about it, but I watched it, and for me, it brought up lots of stuff with Teresita that I had experienced with Teresita. There's a character in there who meets someone, La Veneno, who becomes her trans mother, her queer mother, and they have rough times. We had some exchanges, some periods that were not always great, and um, now that so much time has passed, and I was able to digitize the footage that I have of her, I'm really eager to share her story again, um, and for me, she represents gender. It's not drag. She didn't really call herself a drag performer. She was not a drag performer. She was a performer who performed as a woman, and sometimes where it was in queer settings, often not. But what I grew up with in San Diego was really coming out in Tijuana, in the bars of Tijuana, where Tijuana had these highly choreographed, super produced shows, travestis, and um, and when I came to San Francisco, I have to admit I was really disappointed. I was like, "Ay, is this it? Where's the real clubs? Where are the real shows? I need showgirls." And instead, I met Teresita, and so what I learned was, oh, okay, the shows here are different. There were traveling shows. She would go from restaurant to La Rondalla and different restaurants. Or she would go to North Beach. Often she wouldn't tell people her tea. She wouldn't share her tea. She would get some money. She would get lots of money and booze and men, and then she would share her tea. And so what I learned from her was, um, be a professional, put on a good show, and get the money, um, and then share your tea when you're ready to share it.
Did she see the film that you made or any of the footage?
She did. She saw it and she loved it. Unfortunately, we grew up in poverty, and what she started to think that I was making lots of money off of the movie, which is the complete opposite. I've only lost money on art. Good Lord, I've never made money on art. We did get Augie and I got a grant for Viva 16th. I think I might have gotten a small grant, and I think I might have gotten a small grant for the Teresita movie, which covered probably like 10% of my expenses, and that did not include any salary for me. So what happened was when she saw it at the Roxy, I also would show movies at the bars. I would get the owners to stop. Like Viva 16 we showed on a Friday night, and La India Bonita. We showed it. We showed it at Esta Noche one week. Showed it at La India Bonita. Was another bar back then. Another time, and the Teresita movie we showed um, as well. And what happened was she thought that I was making lots of money, and we ended up going to a conference in DC where I recorded her and others. I was making another movie, and um, so she loved the movie, and she thought, oh, because I make movies, I have a lot of money, and so we had a falling out about that. But she did love it. Now, actually, what I'm interested in is getting other people's takes because. Like there were lots of people on 16th Street and outside of 16th Street who loved her that I'd like to bring in into the movie.
Mhm. I really want to thank you, Tina, for talking so openly and candidly about the complexities that can happen when we're documenting and trying to preserve those around us and ways in which, like, you love Teresita so much and that there can be challenges that arise around artistry. And what I see is that similar to like with Ruben, how queerness and gender queerness and a refusal to give into oppression has connected you to people and brought you to Teresita, and that the two of you and anyone that you're connecting to in that way, there's an opportunity for opening up your world and theirs. And I know that one such person similar to that has been Jesse James Johnson, your sister from the early 90s. And we're going to hear from Jesse now.
Okay, Tina. Legends, Monsters, Chosen Family. Legends. The founding of GALA, the Gay Alliance of Latin Americans. The publication of This Bridge Called My Back, Esta Noche, Teresita la Campesina, singing rancheras in the streets of La Misión, an almost mythical neighborhood of old Victorians and bright murals and wild parrots and displaying palms. These tales morphed into legends as they rippled across the nation. The first time I heard about the Joteria of San Francisco was 44 years ago. I was living in Texas. For me, a queer teenager in the Chicano movement, and for many others, the notion of having an identity where one could be both gay and Mexicano was a revelation. These are the origin myths of our liberation. Yo soy la muerte. I'm chaos, destruction. I'm darkly promiscuous. I'm the hustlers in front of the video arcade, Las Putas on Cap Street. I'm the old faggot in leather chaps. I'm the burning stick figure in a meth lab explosion. A babbling schizophrenic on the 14th mission. I'm black magic and crack. I'm ignorance, apathy, and petty theft. I'm disease and infection. I'm the zombie with the rotting teeth. I'm as a Gui at the end of the hallway. I'm the dark roots that feed the pretty flowers of our community. Chosen families. Birth families are defined by blood, property, genetics, law. Chosen families are defined by a chance encounter, a smirk, a spark, chemistry, a common enemy. Our mother's hearts, our father's arms, trust, necessity, loyalty, longevity, persistence, amor. The memory of all our fallen, ghost and sorrow unending. My name is Jesse James Johnson. I'm Tina's older sibling. About 30 years ago, Tina introduced me to film and to the hoteria of 16th Street. Consequently, we almost ran over Rios Moreno, and in separate events, each in our turn, scandalized our joyfully scandalous community. Today, on the edge of what was once a gay Latino universe, Tina and spouse still live. From their front window, I have watched a pair of ravens in the bell towers of the cathedral. They are caustic, opinionated. They ridicule the clumsy-minded. They fly to dizzying heights. They dance with elegance. They are brilliant, defiant, faithful, and wise. They are constant. They are constant.
That poem is such an homage to you and to your connection. There's lots of little references that are so clearly about the two of you, the photos, and then there's really clear concrete places. And I remember when we were talking about this earlier and I got to see this, that you said that this poem was a long time coming and that, you and Jesse have been so connected and have a history. And I'd love to hear more about that.
Yes, I thank you. I am so honored that Jesse made this for tonight, for me. He and I lived together. He lived with me at some point. Augie also lived with me. Have other friends, artists. Um, Joey Vaquera, who's a great photographer, lived with me. I live on 16th Street, right across the street from Mission Dolores, and um, and what Jesse shared was very specific to our living together. I would call him La Muerte because sometimes he would walk down the halls. I live in a flat, which is long in San Francisco. You know, the flats are long, and he would scratch along the aluminum siding and make a sound sometimes in the middle of the night to spook me. And what he didn't realize was, oh, that doesn't spook me. And then I'd say, um, he'd say, I'm here for you. And then I'd say, La Muerte, I know it's you. It's okay. Come on in. I'm not afraid of death, and death is a good friend, unfortunately or fortunately, and and then I just started calling him La Muerte because what we realized was, you know, to some people we are monsters, right? We will always be monsters and scary. I will admit I kind of miss the days sometimes when walking down the street, people would cross the street because in my neighborhood, um, monsters have always ruled. 16th Street is still about monsters in a way that I value. Like 16th and Mission is different than like 24th Street or the Fillmore or other neighborhoods, and um, and for me, Jesse was and I were both emblematic of how we could be art, we can be leaders, we could be that we belong here. We deserve to be able to walk down the street, and if you happen to be scared enough to cross the street, then hallelujah, cross the street because here comes La Muerte and Tina down 16th Street.
I love the way that you're kind of redefining the idea of monsters, um, and and that that 16th Street is so central to you in your life, and that you're still there, and also like a sort of spirituality, in a sense. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to the way in which spirituality and art are connected to you, and how they come through you in your life.
Yeah, I learned from my father that we are God and God is everywhere, and that the idea of needing to go into a space, a church, a room where we are judged and made to feel bad is not real. That construct, what he would say is, no, you can just um, go talk to a tree, or go take a walk, or just all of it is us. And for me, I think writing and creativity and politics, culture work is really about us ultimately getting to a place where we love each other and we come back to ourselves. If we become disintegrated, if we've separated ourselves in ways that start to take a toll, that I guess it is a spiritual thing to come back to yourself and to come back to your sisters, or to make time to grieve, to make time to celebrate. It's spiritual. I don't look at what I do as spiritual, but I do think mothering or mentoring or coaching and strategizing it can be spiritual. What Jesse taught me was, um, at a young age, I was thrust into HIV/AIDS politics, um, and service provision, and there were nonprofits, organizations, and policy groups that were doing really important work, and they needed all of us. And at times, it was to such a great extent that it hurt us. And this was before harm reduction. It was a time when truly movements, the what followed from the civil rights movement and then the AIDS movement, in terms of people of color and on women, who were often left out of conversations, and trans and trans women especially, was that we had to put in the time, we had to put in the work, and what that meant was sometimes it was to our detriment. And what Jesse taught me was, no organizations and systems are meant to improve humanity, and when that starts to falter, it's really on us to remember that if we're not helping ourselves in the systems or the organizations that we're working in, how is that good for the world? And on a basic level, it tells me I need to be spiritual in my daily work. And although I don't call it that, what I really mean is I need to be human, and I need to stay connected to my humanity and the humanity of others.
I know that when you and Jesse met in 92, you were part of a younger cohort, and you had mentors, and many of your mentors were passing and dying. And so that there's a way in which loss and grief has framed things for the two of you. And so it's no surprise that these things are are so strong in the way that you speak about each other. And um and I really love that. And when you talk about your life and your art, I've heard you say that there are people that you just meet in these moments, right? You maybe have similar identities, or you have a kinship, or you're living through something together, and over time you become one unit. And one such unit that you've spoken about is a unit of artists, and artists from that time. And I know that that includes Jesse and Teresita, and I know that it also includes your friend Alfredo, who you've spoken about and are going to share with us right now.
Yes, Alfredo Armendaris, presente. Alfredo was my sister. He was from Texas and came. He lived in L.A. He came out as a queer in L.A. He contracted HIV and was active in what was called the Plus seminars, and he moved to San Francisco. Um, and came to me as a client. I was a case manager and a health educator for early intervention at a time when there really weren't medications, so it was rough. Um, and he came to me as a client. I did an intake with him, and by the end, what he said was, "I don't want to be your client. I want to be your friend." And I said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know I don't know if that's okay." And he said, "Well, it has to be okay. So just assign somebody else to me, and then let's go have a burrito." And we did. And then we just became sisters. We met Pedro Almodovar together. We went to a film. We had all these adventures. We went to leather bars. We went to art shows. He was an artist. He is a sculptor and a painter. And extremely talented. Holy mama. Um, Jesse and I were all we've been artists the whole time, and sometimes we would meet somebody, and then we'd think, "Oh my God, we can we're not worthy." Alfredo was one of them because he was great. And the photo that you shared, sorry, I didn't get to that really quickly, was that he and I would dress up as Diego and Frida for Halloween. This is in the old days when there was a Halloween procession in the Castro and
Uh-huh.
hundreds of thousands of people, lots of people.
I
And
remember those days.
they were fun days. So
Mhm.
there was a series of years, a number of years, where we dressed up as Diego and Frida, different iterations. So that was one year where we were walking. It was pretty, I think it was one of the first years. And that we just loved each other and had fun together and created art.
Well, we actually have one of the retablos named that Alfredo made for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little on the heavy side because God knows we lived through heavy times, and this, like I said, this was a time before effective medications. What was available was AZT, which is horribly toxic, and the only prophylaxis that was available was a 30-day treatment of AZT, and there was a time when I had unsafe sex and used drugs and alcohol, and I was really scared. And what after it happened, um, the man that I was with, he was just upfront and said, I don't know. I don't know if I haven't gotten tested in a long time, and we shouldn't have done this, and I feel really bad, and I felt bad, and so I told Alfredo, look, I'm really scared. I don't know what to do. Of course, we knew what to do, like factually. I went to a city clinic and got the prophylaxis 30-day treatment, and then just was scared like hell. And Alfredo painted this retablo for me, for the Virgin Mary, because it worked. The AZT was horrible, by the way. It made me really, really sick, and it gave me a good understanding of how toxic some things are that are supposed to heal us actually hurt us, and that the process is something that we needed to work out through art. So Alfredo made this for me for the Virgin Mary, and I also like the back of it, where he just it's just for me, like I'm the only person really meant to see that. And it just makes me super happy. It lives in my back room. I haven't really shared it with people. I didn't need to, but I need to share with people how fabulous Alfredo was. And he also did great community work. He worked in HIV That's a picture by Kenneth Leaf, who is a local. He lives in San Francisco, is a photographer, a great photographer. Um, Alfredo fell in love with Ken. Maybe I don't know. I'm going to limit this story because it's very specific, but it didn't go well. And this photo, I know this moment was Alfredo sometimes would channel. Candela was a character from a Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, and this was Alfredo's channeling of this kind of torch song tragedy, but it was real. So I think what we shared was that at any given moment, we can cry, we can emote, we can fill out these roles because we lived them. And in that case, it was a photo from Ken, who he loved, and it didn't work out. And um, and he was able to turn it into art.
I love how much you're bringing all of these people and bringing Alfredo here and sharing with us. You know, and we're going to have a lot of healing to do after COVID, and this is a historical trauma we're living through, and you have lived through one. And of course, my childhood, that was a backdrop to my childhood, but I know it's very different. And for you to keep bringing people in, and it makes me think about, you know, the word legends and the theme here, and your work and notions of legends are so deeply rooted in the everyday. And in these exchanges, like here's this incredible retablo that was just for you, right? And there's something so powerful about the way that you honor those close to you as if they're powerful legends in their own right. And then they become that, and they're becoming that tonight.
And I want to add that you are. I know that you're a legend, and like in this context, that you growing up or you experiencing AIDS and its impact when as a young person. I know Mason Jay is another person who is another. You're both part of my chosen family. You're in the Chosen Familias exhibition that I curated with Juan Fernandez, who is also in sharing a video tonight. But I guess why I bring this up is because I know that all of you are legends too. And but the time traveling component is that, like, I know damn well you're legends, but not everybody else does. And that also, like, part of my job is to say, hey, do you know Teresita La Campesina? Do you know Esther Hernandez? Do you know the work of Lenore Chin or Virginia Benavides or others that I kind of take for granted because at any given moment, my brain is in the 80s, 90s, zeros, and I'm just bringing everybody along with me. But sometimes I literally forget to bring them along. So I make sure I'm like, hey, current legend, let me introduce you to this older legend.
Well, let's introduce everyone to another one, Adela Vasquez.
Oh, yes. Oh my God, I love Adela.
Let's meet her.
Ask me how was finding for me community in 16th Street. 16th Street, when I first got here, they had 3 bars that were Latinos, and they all were gay and queer. And when I first came here, it was a matter of, it took me a while to discover 16th Street. Not until I was Adela, I discovered it. It received me with open arms. It was a great community, a community that is lost and that I miss. Esta noche, Los Portales, India Bonita, there were places that people will go for more than dancing. It was a place to make community, to make friends, to find a dick, to find a roommate. It was just a matter of a great place for Latinos. We are Latinos to be at the 80s and 90s. And some of the 2000s as well. I think that one of the big mistakes that we made was allowing Esta Noche to close. Now, I don't know what people get together. I don't know if people get together. But back then, it was a very remarkable. It was an important place for us all to be there. I didn't reach there when I was working with the community. I put tables in front of Esta Noche. I had I made good friends for lifetime that I made in Esta Noche. Tina, one of them. I love what happened there after hour. It was you will find out how people were, what were they doing at the time. Which is a great place to be, and it still is. It just doesn't have the queer part that was so usual. Thank you, Tina. I hope that answered your question.
So let's talk about Adela. She really mentioned a number of the places you talked about earlier, Esta Noche, India Bonita, and I'd just love to hear more about your relationship with her.
Sure. Yes. So I love Adela, and as a little intro, what I can share is that she came here as a Marielita from Cuba. Under the Castro regime, queers and trans people were persecuted, imprisoned. She was imprisoned. In fact, one of the photos that Jesse shared during his poem it was Tony Molina, who was another Cuban trans um, Marielita who came and uh, ended up in San Francisco because of the queer mecca that we are. Um, Adela, when I met Adela, we were doing community. I was doing community work. I used to do HIV outreach on 16th Street. I worked with Mission Neighborhood Health Centers, Clínica Esperanza, helped to set it up like in 1990. And we had Proyecto Móvil was a van where we had videos. We customized a van to have video screens on two sides that would it was that we would show like safe sex videos. We would show a movie that my mentor Rodrigo had made, Ojos que no ven, which was a novela where we talked about sex and gay Latino families, and I would distribute condoms and talk to people about safe sex. And Adela also did HIV outreach. She worked with Instituto Familiar de la Raza. She worked with Proyecto Contra SIDA por Vida, PCPV. PCPV was founded by Jesse, James Johnson, Ricardo Bracho, and Diane Felix. And they were fabulous leaders, artists, community people. And Adela was there for a good while at Proyecto. There was the first Trans Latina program, and she led that. That work led to what is now Ella. So I'm really proud of her and that work. It really saved lots of lives. The work saved lots of lives, trans Latina lives. Um, but also she's a big, huge monster. I knew immediately she was a huge monster, and um, we just did lots of great community events. She did lots of fundraisers. We had lots of fun. She were scandalous. So there's some stories that I won't put on tape here, but suffice to say that maybe in the future there might be some juicy details, alternate takes that Adela and I could share. I do love Adela. She's also a mother. She's my Nibling's mother, Juli Lopera, Juli Delgado Lopera, who's a great writer. Um, they're um, they're Adela's child, and I'm Juli's auntie, queer auntie, because Adela's my sister, and um, and it's just been awesome to be able to like stay in community with her.
I love hearing about Adela and Adela's life. And, she, for instance, how she mentioned, oh, when I was working, and then we get such a fuller picture of kind of what that work was. And I just can't wait. I know it's just a little small moment honoring. But there's so many intergenerational relationships here that we're talking about and that are building upon each other. And it's so clear that not only have you been loved, but you have so much love that has made it easy to love others. And part of that includes seeking out these intergenerational relationships in your life. And next, we're actually going to meet Huli, who is Adela's queer child. We're going to hear more from Juan Fernandez, who was your co-curator of the Chosen Familia exhibit.
Hi. So in thinking about queer family and my community and cultural work, queer family has meant everything to me. I arrived in San Francisco about 13 years ago almost, running away basically from my deeply, deeply homophobic family. And I met Adela, who is my queer mom, and that completely changed the trajectory of my life, my own sense of self-worth, but also like my own relationship with my queerness. It was through Adela that I connected to like a larger community of people, and I was just able to be myself and have a lot of like motherly love that I was not getting anywhere, and that was huge for me. It was the first time that I felt truly seen in a family setting, and that was incredible. I remember going into her house and the mission, and just like, finding what has become my tias, Tina being one of them, Nelson being another one, and just like hanging out and kikiing, and like that beautiful feeling of like just being able to let go because everybody around you just kind of gets you. And it was through Adela that I started doing a lot of projects with queer history. And so my first book, Cuéntamelo, grows out of my relationship with her and my aunties. And then with Tina, I did we curated, she was part and she helped with the curation of that project that we did. I did LGBT Circle Museum of Latinx history, which is incredible for me because it was like the first time that I saw people from my own lineage represented in queer history and like taking up space and being badass bitches. So queer family is everything. And luckily for queer people, we have a really long history of developing these relationships. And, I love my tia and I love my mom, the badass bitches.
My name is Juan Fernandez. I'm here tonight to speak a little bit about my experiences working with Tina V. Aguirre for Still Here SF's Legends, Monsters, and Chosen Family, an evening with Tina V. Aguirre. I co-curated the Chosen Familias exhibition with Tina in 2019 after meeting her for lunch. Tina invited me out to lunch after learning that I had just moved here from New York City, having finished grad school through my partner. He shared with her that I was struggling to make community, to make friends, and that I was extremely depressed. Tina reached out to me, and by the end of that lunch date, I was signed up to get my hands dirty and work with Tina on this exhibition. Working with Tina was a blessing. I freely gave of my time just as much as I saw Tina giving, and that was Tina leading by example. Tina never expected me to complete anything on my own, and was extremely hands-on and really taught me how to visualize what family can look like, basically by inviting me to the family table in co-curating this project. It was an interpersonal and very hands-on process. Today, I consider Tina my queer auntie, my chosen auntie, my chosen godmother, my madrina. Everything that I learned from Tina in that process, I bring with me to the table now when I work with my own staff and students as a coordinator for the Queer Resource Center at City College of San Francisco. I am indebted to Tina's generosity, and I'm really grateful to be able to be here and share a little bit about that experience with you all. Thank you again to you all, and thank you especially to Tina. Buenas noches.
You actually, along with Juan, you had an exhibit in which you really had LGBTQ Latinx people take up space at the GLBT Historical Society through this exhibit. And I just want people to know a little bit more about it and what it took and what it was like.
So this show was actually a moment to say, actually, don't pick all the moments that you're curating for social media, where like you're a glamorous person or you're out traveling. This is the idea was give me photos of people that show love. And if you're able to in through your photos to show love and how you build hope and resilience, that's going to do the trick. And people coming into the museum then, and they were able to get to know us, and so that meant there's tourists from all over the world. There are lots of white people, different ethnic groups, racial groups who don't really understand our history, and we don't understand each other. So to a large extent, so it really meant here it is in this tiny space. There were some photos. So one photo behind me is actually from that exhibit, and um, and then there were just the 21 photo albums that people could go through. I got tremendous feedback on it, and more than anything, I got to share that love with everybody who went to the museum.
Your generation has so beautifully held the balance between activism and urgency, and also taking the time to build community and space that is needed to move us all forward. And so I'm wondering, what advice do you have for artists living now through this particular moment, knowing that we are in COVID and that there will be another side? What advice do you have for all of us?
I would say don't wait. Don't wait for this pandemic to be over. Don't wait to get funded. Don't wait to get mentored. Don't wait for a family member to help you start whatever project you need to do. Just do it. And it's now easier than before, where you could do things like movies online. You can use your phone. There's so much still possible, and people are still creating. And um, now is the time, and you are the person. We are the people. We are the solution. If you want to put something out there, do it. And that in the process is the love and the healing, and that it is hours and hours of work. Like it's not glamorous, and it's not always fun. Like putting on the Chosen Familias exhibition, it was hours and hours of going through photos and inserting them in binders and making sure everything looked good and everything was on time, and then doing all the signage. It took a great deal of time, and that it's important. So right now, I'd say if you are writing, if you're creating art, if you're thinking of a project that needs to happen, find a way to make it happen. Queer Cultural Center, you're the new executive director of Queer Cultural Center. Congratulations. And that you have grants for artists, and you're a venue for art projects and festivals. Um, there, San Francisco, and how we are online now means you don't have to even be in San Francisco. If you are an artist, you're a cultural worker, and you're working on these fronts of mobilizing communities against oppression, it has to include art, by the way. So, like, God forbid we have some great, fabulous art and we're able to love and laugh along the way. Because if we don't do that now, I don't know when we're going to do it.
Thank you. Before we go to the question and answer portion of tonight, where you all get to ask Tina questions, we're going to share one more video of Teresita.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hi, Janine. How are
Oh my
you?
God. I'm still in awe of everything that I just saw and heard. Thank you so much, Tina, for sharing so much of that wonder. I'm still in awe of everything.
I hear an echo. Are we on? Should we not be?
Is that better? Okay, great. Are you ready for questions? Awesome.
Yes. We're
Okay. So there's a question from Lito S. Can you talk a little bit more about Rodrigo Reyes and his role in your life and the queer Latinx community?
Rodrigo, and I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Can you talk a little bit more about Rodrigo and his role in your life and in the queer Latinx community?
Sure. So Rodrigo was a really fabulous queen who worked around 16th Street and 24th Street. He was the chair of the board of It was Mission Neighborhood Centers that had childcare and social services in the mission. And he was a grant writer and a poet and a playwright. Um, and he founded Curas and Gala and organizations for gay Latinx people here in San Francisco. And I loved him to pieces. I think we met reading poetry at like Modern Times bookstore.
Go San Francisco. Thank you. All right. The next question is from Alma. Tina, why is it important for you for members of the queer community to archive their own stories?
I think, I am chair of the board of the GLBT Historical Society, but I started documenting our stories so long ago that for me, it really is about, I don't know, continuity, or just making sure that if something happens to one of us, that the rest of us know the story, that we know sort of the blueprint or the map of what's gone on, where we've been, and where we're going. I think without that, we lose facts, but then we also lose our art and our culture and our love, and it's important to pass that on.
Absolutely.
I don't know if did I answer the question. I hope so.
I feel that you did.
Okay.
I'm satisfied. Yeah, especially, in queer San Francisco, we're losing so much of what made us what we are, so we have to document our precious lives. So the next question is, after hearing Jesse, a legend, would you share your thoughts about Joteria queer organizing and art across Outlan, Califas, Tejas, Arizona, Mexico, and all over? And excuse my pronunciation.
Sure. And I just want to acknowledge that's from Maria Salazar. I was in seeing
Yes.
chat questions, and I'm so happy everybody's here tonight. And Jesse's presence tonight really does speak to Maria's question, which is kind of based. Jesse and Algo. There's an organization out of Austin, Austin Latino, lesbian, and gay organization. Happened around the same time there was a national Yego, a queer Latinx organization. Jesse learned from radical leftists about community organizing and the value of art. I should know his mentor's name. I know it's Raul, who's a radical poet out of Texas, and who taught him the Saul Alinsky, the ways to organize people and how to make sure that that I guess our culture and our work is spread. So definitely Maria's question speaks to how our work transcends particular cities, particular areas, and that in that context, Aslan, I mean, all of this, a lot of this, so much of the Southwest was Mexico. So for me, I just see it as this is our land, and all that we're doing really is owning it and owning ourselves. And I appreciate that question from Maria.
Yes, that was fantastic. Thank you. I have a question for you, which is, you had mentioned early on that to you, a monster is a fully realized, actualized person. Why is the concept of that so scary, or how does that definition queer or empower the notion of monstrosity?
Well, I don't know. In some ways, it comes back to my mom. It's sort of like Almodovar's film, all about my mother. I think really for me, my art is all about my mother, me and my mother, kind of, and that my mom lived with dwarfism. She was really short and completely beautiful and wonderful light in the world, where she woke up and always had love and hope in the morning. And what I found is the way that people treated her was awful. They were the monsters, because she was different. And what I learned very early on is being different. Um, it more has to do with the other people. And if they wanted to look at my mom as a monster, then I knew they needed to look at me like a monster too. Because if the way you treat her is the way you're treating all the rest of us, as far as I'm concerned. So let me be the best monster around, I guess. Or I don't know. I think also like meeting Ruben and Anselmo, my sisters from elementary. What I now understand is we look for each other, right? That we look for reflections or permutations of ourselves in others, and but that some of us are maybe a tiny bit more monstrous than others, and what I now know is that Ruben saw that in me, and then I see that in others, and it makes me happy.
Thank you. Beautiful. One final question. This one is also from Alma. What is your next film going to be on, and how do you nurture trust in order to document your family?
Be around. I don't know. I think ask. Not everybody's going to say yes, right? And it's okay. I don't know. I think Augie and I were able to do Viva 16th because I was just a regular on 16th Street, and it made sense. And um, I think it just comes down to love, and if people trust you and they know that you're going to make something that will help pay tribute or help, I don't know, I guess a legacy afterward to remember them, then usually it's okay. But do ask. I do ask. I don't tape anybody or shoot anything that people don't want. And in terms of a next project, I don't really know. I think I'm tempted to find a way to get recordings of like we're in the Still Here San Francisco writing group. There's other members, there are other writers, there are other community organizers, cultural producers that I want to document our stories now as they're happening. But I do want to wrap up the Teresita movie too. So if anybody has an extra 10, 20 grand lying around so that I can finish the Teresita movie, I will accept donations and then start working on the other ones.
Thank you so much, Tina.
Nati.
Hi, well, now we've come to the end of our program, but I just want to say que viva Teresita, que viva Nadella, and Alfredo, and Jesse, and Ruben, and Juan, and Juli, and you, Tina, and all of us here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight as we explored and learned from legends, monsters, and chosen familia, and, find these artists and cultural producers, follow them, get to know them, and we look forward to being in community with you virtually or in person.
Thank you, Still Here, SF. Thank you, Nati. I love you so much.
Love you too. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.